The HOA conspiracy, a veteran's fight for peace. My worst nightmare as a veteran unfolded in the quiet of Pine Hollow, a sleepy suburb in Oregon, on a crisp September morning in 2024. The HOA president, Evelyn Harper, tossed my mail into the dumpster via disability checks, and all because my mailbox wasn't neighborhood approved. Her smug excuse didn't hold up when she needed bail money later that day. Let me take you back to where it all began. We just settled into our new home on Cedar Street, a modest two-story with a sprawling yard for Rusty, my aging Labrador. I'm Tom, a retired Army vet with a limp and a head full of memories I'd rather forget. My wife, Sarah, and I chose Pine Hollow for its promise of peace, a place where the loudest sound was the rustle of leaves. That first week, I was teaching Rusty to claim the yard as his own. He was sniffing a lavender bush Sarah had planted, and for a moment, I let myself believe we'd found our sanctuary. Big mistake. A golf cart hummed to a stop at our curb. Evelyn Harper, with her razor-sharp bob and eyes like a vulture circling prey, leaned out. "Good morning," she said, her voice dripping with fake courtesy. "I'm Evelyn, president of the Pine Hollow HOA." She said president like she ruled an empire, not a cul-de-sac. I stood, brushing dirt off my jeans. Rusty growled low, sensing her venom before I did. "Tom," I said, keeping it short. I'd learned long ago to share only what's necessary. Evelyn's gaze swept over my lawn, pausing on the flagpole I'd installed by the porch, Old Glory snapping in the breeze. "There's an issue with your flagpole," she said, pulling out a measuring tape like a weapon. "It's 3 inches too tall, per HOA regulations. And the flag can only fly on federal holidays. Today's not one." I stared, dumbfounded. I'd faced gunfire, made choices that haunted me for years, and this woman was calling my flag illegal. The absurdity almost made me laugh, but her eyes told me this was about control, not rules. Sarah stepped out with iced tea, her smile fading when she saw Evelyn. "Everything okay?" she asked, glancing between us. Evelyn barely acknowledged her. "I'm informing your husband of a violation," she said, spitting the word husband like it was an insult. Section B, paragraph 7. He has 24 hours to remove it, or it's a $150 fine. My blood heated, that old anger I'd fought to bury rising fast. Rusty stood, fur bristling, positioning himself between me and the cart. "Evelyn," I said, my voice low and steady, "I bled for that flag. It's not a decoration, it's a promise. It stays." Her face flushed, her composure cracking. "You'll hear from our attorney," she hissed, reversing her cart with a whine and speeding off. Sarah touched my arm. "Tom, you can't just—" I did. I cut in, still watching the cart vanish. Some lines you don't let people cross. But I knew this was only the opening shot. Pine Hollow wasn't our dream by chance. After years of bases, cramped apartments overseas, and hospital rooms reeking of antiseptic, I'd promised Sarah a home where we could hear the grass grow. My last tour left me broken physically and mentally. The doctors called me a hero. I felt like a ghost. Pine Hollow's oak-lined streets and shimmering lake felt like the end of the road we'd been chasing. We poured every dime into that house-me disability pay, Sarah's savings from teaching. For 2 weeks, it was perfect. We painted the den a warm sage, fixed creaky floors, and watched fireflies from the porch. Then Evelyn struck. Fines piled up. Grass too long by half an inch, Sarah's teal doormat unapproved, Rusty's bark too loud in our own yard. Each letter was a jab, designed to break us. Sarah's face grew tight with worry. "This isn't peace, Tom," she said, clutching another notice. Her words cut deeper than any fine. Evelyn wasn't just targeting Mesh, was stealing the life I'd promised Sarah. The final straw was Rusty's ramp. At 15, his hips were failing. Watching him struggle up the porch steps tore me apart. He'd been my shadow through deployments, my anchor during recovery. So, I built a simple wooden ramp with non-slip treads. The first time he trotted down it, tail wagging, I felt whole again. 3 days later, Evelyn rolled up with her enforcer, a hulking guy named Vince. "An unapproved structure," she declared, pointing at the ramp. "Remove it, or we will, and you'll pay." "It's for my service dog," I said, gripping my temper. "The ADA protects this." I'd skimmed enough online to bluff. Evelyn sneered. "A dog's not a person." This is your last warning. They left, and I stood there, shaking with rage. This wasn't about rules, it was cruelty, plain and simple. Inside, Sarah's voice trembled. What now, Tom? I looked at Rusty, dozing by his ramp, and something hardened in me. We fight, I said. This ends. I treated it like a mission. First, recon. I watched Evelyn's house from my darkened den, noting her schedule. Newspaper at 6 a.m., golf cart patrols at 8. Neighbors shared horror stories, fines for kids' lemonade stands, forced house repaints. My ally was Nate, our next-door neighbor, a lanky IT guy with a goofy grin. She's a dictator, he warned. She lives for this. I needed hard evidence, so I hit HOA meetings. Evelyn ruled them like a tyrant, with Vince looming and the treasurer, Leonard, a nervous wreck. At one meeting, I saw my chance. Leonard fumbled his budget report, and Evelyn tossed his papers into a box. While Nate spilled coffee on Vince as a distraction, I swiped the documents. At home, I found it. $6,000 monthly payments to Green Valley Landscaping, a shell company owned by Evelyn. Embezzlement. My heart raced. This was a felony. But I needed more. I baited Evelyn with a tacky lawn gnome and a wobbly flamingo, knowing she'd send Vince to remove them. Hidden cameras caught him stealing them and rifling through my mailbox, taking VA checks. A federal crime. But the real shock was the driver, Leonard, the timid treasurer. He wasn't a victim, was her partner. Digging deeper, I found Leonard's shell company, Pine Web Solutions, siphoning smaller sums. They were a team, Evelyn the bully, Leonard the brains. My plan shifted. I needed Leonard's computer. With Nate as lookout, I broke into his house during their weekly trivia night. It was tight, 30 seconds to pick the lock, heart pounding. I plugged in a thumb drive, but they returned early. I dove out a window, barely escaping, with only partial files. One file changed everything. A hidden camera video from Leonard's office, 6 months old. Evelyn and Leonard discussed draining HOA reserves, ramping up fines to force out residents, and selling homes to a developer, the town's founder, a retired philanthropist named Harold Grayson. It wasn't just theft. It was a conspiracy to gut Pine Hollow for profit. My blood boiled. This was war. The final HOA meeting was a holiday potluck, tinsel everywhere. Evelyn played the benevolent leader, Leonard her quiet sidekick. I carried a laptop loaded with evidence. As Evelyn droned about community, I raised my hand. Her smile faltered. I have a presentation, I said, plugging in. Nate dimmed the lights. The screen lit up with Vince stealing my gnome, then my mail. Gasps filled the room. Evelyn shrieked. Fake. Vince lunged, but I dropped him with a wrist lock, pinning him. Stay down, I growled. I showed the shell companies, then played the video. Evelyn and Leonard's voices filled the silence, plotting to ruin lives. The crowd erupted shouts, phones dialing 911. Leonard bolted, but neighbors blocked him. Evelyn's lies drowned in the chaos. Sirens wailed. It was over. The fallout was swift. The FBI took over. Evelyn and Leonard took plea deals, facing prison and massive restitution. Grayson's legacy crumbled under lawsuits. Nate became HOA president, scrapping Evelyn's rules and hosting a block party with the first restitution check. Sarah and I sat on our porch,